Ratios and unit rates. A ratio is just a fraction. It can be written this way, or you can write it with a colon in between, or you can say a to be with the word to in there. Ratios can be reduced, need to be reduced. Even if you write it like this, it needs to be reduced. Or if you write it like this, it needs to be reduced. Generally, ratios are written as whole numbers in the numerator and denominator, and the fraction is in lowest terms. You cannot write it as just one whole number. So normally when we have a fraction and it reduces down to like 5 over 1, we'll just write it as a 5. You can't do that with a ratio. So if it ends up being 5 over 1, you leave it as 5 over 1. Because that's the same thing as 5 colon 1. You can't let it just disappear. You need two numbers there. That's what they were saying. So let's look at some examples. Write each ratio as a fraction in lowest terms. They want us to reduce some things. When we have a mixed number, we can't leave it as a mixed number. If we're going to write it, we need to write it as a fraction and reduce it. So here we're going to have to write it as an improper fraction. So 2 1/2 will become our 4 5 over 2. 2. This will become our 10 11 over 2. That's the same thing as saying 5 over 2 over 11 over 2. And when we have division, it's the same thing as saying 5 over 2 times, because we flip it over and multiply, 2 over 11, and things can cancel out. So here, when you see it like that, if they have the same bottoms, it's like they can go away. Those bottoms can just go away. So because they cancel out, if they have the same bottom, they can just go away, and you'll end up with 5 over 11 or 5 to 11. Since they left it this way, I would suggest you write your answer that way. Since they started at the 5 2, since they started with the TO, I'm suggesting you write your answer with the TO. Not that you have to, just that I'm suggesting it. They say to write it as a fraction in lowest terms, so they're probably wanting it like this. But anyway, 3 days to 1.5 days, that's 3 over 2. So when I go from 3 over 1, because that's what it is, to 3 over 2, I don't get to cancel out like that, do I? I don't have the same bottoms. But what I do have is the exact same tops, and they would cancel out the same way. I'd end up with 3 over 1 times 2 over 3, because you flip it over when you multiply, and the 3's would end up canceling out. Once again, they have the same tops, just like here they had the same bottoms. So the same tops would end up being able to cancel out. And you end up with 2 over 1. I would suggest you actually write that one out. But if it has the same bottoms, just go ahead and cancel it. So 2 over 1, which you need to leave as 2 over 1. According to what they asked you for. Okay. Now they want you to try for these two. 1 1/3 is 4/3 over 12, 13, 14 thirds. They cancel out. And 4 over 14 can be reduced as well. And you get 2 over 7 for A. 7 over 1 over 4, 5, 6, 7 over 4. And that's 4 over 1 for B. A unit rate is a ratio, well, a unit, first of all. A rate, I can talk. A rate is a ratio that has different units on top and bottom. We've been talking about ratios, and they have the exact same units. See, this was months to months. Ratios have the same units, months to months. But a rate has different units on top and on bottom. So, like miles per hour, that's a rate. How fast you do something, that's a rate. Changing rates to unit rates means that you need to divide the top number by the bottom number and keep the same units. It's very important that you keep the same units. This class, as well as every class you take after this one, because of all the classes that it feeds into, are very specific about their units. So they want to make sure you keep the same units there. So when you have something like, you can go for example, you can go 81 miles in 1 hour, 15 minutes. How fast are you really traveling? What's the unit rate? That's what they want to know. So you have the 81 miles per 1 hour and 15 minutes, which is 1.25 hours. But we want to do the division. So you have 81 divided by 1.25. So that's 64.8 miles per hour that I would have to drive in order to make it to work that fast. Just saying. On average. Just throwing that out there. Number 5. They want us to write 18 to 28 as a fraction in lowest terms. 18 would have to go on top. 28 would have to go on bottom because the first number is the one that goes on top. The second number is the one that goes on the bottom. 18 to 28 as a fraction in lowest terms. So all we have to do now is reduce it. You can stick that in your calculator and reduce it, or you can actually do it in your head. I choose to do it in my head because I ain't got my calculator with me today. So 18 divided by 28. Sorry, not 18 divided by 28. 18 and 28 are both reducible by 2. So that's 9 over 14. Write 5 nickels, see the 2, 5 nickels to 2 to 3/4 as a fraction in lowest terms by first finding common units in the numerator and denominator. We don't have common units, do we? Because we got nickels on top and quarters on the bottom. What do we want to use? Do we want to use nickels or do we want to use quarters? 5 nickels is the same thing as 1/4. So I could say 5 nickels is equal to 1/4 over 3/4. So that's going to be 1 to 3. When you get it as a ratio, you don't have to write quarters anymore. Write the rate, $200, in profit, to $500 invested as a fraction in lowest terms. That's $2 profit for every $5 invested. All I did was reduce it. Write the rate, 50 miles. See, they didn't ask for a unit rate, so I didn't need to divide the 500 into the 200. There was no unit mentioned there. There is a unit mentioned here. Write the rate, 50 miles to 2 gallons of gas as a unit rate. So since they said unit rate, this is when I divide. So I'll say 2 goes into 50, 25 miles per gallon. Find the unit price to the nearest dollar of the set of items and tell which one is better or the best purchase. For these, you always put the money on top. When you're talking about the better price, you always put the money on top. So we want the money to go on top. So we could have $75 for 3 pairs, or we could have $120 for 5 pairs. This is going to be $25 per pair, and this is going to be $25 per pair. $24 per pair? $24 per pair. That's what I get for doing it in my head. The one that is the better price is the smaller number. So that one is going to be the better price. But you always put the money on top. Okay.